Yes, some 1965 quarters with specific mint errors have sold for life-changing amounts of money. And the crazy part? Many of these ultra-rare pieces are still sitting unnoticed in collections, change jars, estate sales, and even pocket changery digging through an old jar of coins. Dusty, forgotten, maybe buried in a drawer or tucked away in a box that hasn't seen daylight for decades. Your fingers skim through ordinary-looking quarters, until suddenly you hold one that feels different. The year reads 1965. It's worn, dirty, and looks like nothing special to history. Before we jump into the rarest and most valuable errors, we need to understand why the year 1965 is so important, and why it produced some of the rarest error coins in modern U.S. history. In the early 1960s, the United States was running into a serious problem, a nationwide coin shortage. Silver prices were rising, people were hoarding coins, and the government couldn't keep up with demand. The situation was so dire that vending machines, payphones, and business transactions were being disrupted. 1965 double die errors. Well-preserved double die examples can sell for $5,000 to $25,000 plus, depending on the strength of the doubling. Off-center strike. A 1965 quarter struck 40% to 60% off-center with full date showing can fetch huge premiums, sometimes $3,000 to $5,000 plus. Double strikes and multiple strikes. Major double strike errors with clear deformation can bring $2,500 to $10,000 plus. Broad-struck 1965 quarter rare high-grade broad strikes can reach over $1,500. Die cap error extremely rare for 1965. These coins can sell for $5,000 to $20,000 plus. Wrong planchet error depending on condition. These can bring $5,000 to $40,000 or more. How to check your 1965 quarter. Step-by-step way. To use a small jewelry scale. Silver quarters weigh 6.25 g. Clad quarters weigh 5.67 g. If you see 6.25 g, you might have a six-figure treasure. Check the RM silver quarters. Rim is pure silver color. Clad quarters. Rim shows a copper stripe. Examine LE10 to look for doubling, stretching, or missing letters. Check center ringes the design perfectly centered. Any missing edges or shifted strikes. Look for anything USL thicker than normal, thinner than normal, strange metal tone, misaligned images, multiple outlines. Anything weird may be valuable. A famous 1965 era quarter. The silver planchet discovery. The first known 1965 silver era quarter sold for over $8,000. Then another surfaced. This one graded nearly uncirculated and sold for over $40,000. The multi-era 1965 quarter A coin showing both an off-center strike and a double strike recently shocked the auction world by fetching over $10,000.1965 quarter found in circulation in 2023. Believe it or not, a 1965 silver quarter was discovered in circulation in the mid-2020s. Even after decades of wear, it sold for over $6,000. Imagine this. But what if I told you that a single 1945 wheat penny, especially one with certain rare mint errors, could be worth hundreds, thousands, or even over $100,000? What if I told you that everyday people have discovered? Because today we are unlocking the most rare 1945 wheat penny errors, revealing how much they can sell for, exploring the wartime history behind them, and breaking down exactly why some are worth as much as a brand new luxury car, or even a house. History of the 1945 wheat penny. The year 1945 was monumental. World War II was coming to an end. Factories in America ran day and night to support the war. Copper was incredibly valuable to the military for ammunition, electrical wiring, and machinery. Because of this, the U.S. Mint had to stretch every ounce of copper they had. In 1943, they had switched to steel pennies, the famous silver-colored steelies. But steel rusted, jammed coin machines, and caused public frustration. So by 1944, the U.S. Mint began using recycled ammunition shell casings as the source for penny metal. This means the most valuable 1945 wheat penny errors. 1945 off-center error penny. An off-center strike happens when the coin is not properly aligned with the die's 0.70% off-center up to $10,000 plus. 1945 double die obverse. Very dramatic doubling. High grade. up to $25,000. 1945 double die reverse, full bold doubling in high grade, $8,000 or more. 1945 penny struck on a silver planchet, premium auction example, could exceed $150,000. 1945 penny struck on a foreign planchet. The U.S. Mint produced coins for other countries, and planchets sometimes got mixed. $20,000 to $30,000 plus. 1945 clipped planchet penny. This happens when the metal sheet overlaps, creating a curved cut, double or triple clip. $500 to $1,500. 1945 broadstrike penny. The coin appears wider and flatter because it wasn't struck in a retaining collar. High grade, $150 to $400. 1945 die crack / cut error, large dramatic cut, $1,000 to $2, $500. Collectors love these because each cud is a unique fingerprint of a failing die. 1945 penny struck through grease. This error causes missing letters or weak details. Dramatic missing details. $500 to $800. How to check your 1945 penny for rare errors? Check the date. 1945 closely. Look for doubling, thickening, or distorted numbers. Examine Liberty and In God We Trust. Doubling is most visible here. Flip the coin, check the wheat stalks and 1 cent for doubling. Look at the rim, is it clipped? Off-center, broader than normal? Weigh the coin, normal weight, 3.11 grams. If it's much lighter or heavier, you may have a foreign or wrong planchet strike. Color, silver or gold-colored pennies can signal a wrong planchet. Shape, odd shapes, misalignment, or partial designs indicate errors.
Imagine picking up an old, dirty 1999 p Connecticut state quarter dollar, maybe one that's been sitting in an old jar for decades, and suddenly realizing you're holding or even up to a jaw-dropping $1 million in the case of the rarest error strikes. This is the kind of coin that looks so ordinary, so worn, so forgotten yet secretly carries a story of incredible minting mistakes, hidden value, and shocking rarity that can turn an everyday coin into a life-changing discovery. And that's why today's video is one you absolutely cannot miss. Because somewhere out there in someone's attic, drawer, pocket, or coin jar, the 1999 p Connecticut state quarter dollar came out during the first year of the legendary 50 state quarters program. Collectors already loved them, but nobody expected the massive flood of mint errors that would follow, errors so dramatic, so shocking, and so valuable that they became some of the most sought-after coins in modern U.S. history. The Connecticut quarter, featuring the famous charter oak tree, was struck in extremely high quantities. But high mintages often mean higher chances for mistakes. And in 1999, the Philadelphia Mint produced some of the most bizarre and collectible errors ever found on a modern circulating coin. One of the most famous categories of valuable 1999 p error Connecticut state quarter dollars is the broadstrike error. A broadstrike happens when the coin is struck without the collar, causing it to expand outward. These coins look stretched, distorted, and larger than normal. Some of the most dramatic broadstrikes easily sell for $2,000 to $600 depending on condition. But extremely wide, perfectly centered broadstrikes can reach over $1,000. Even old and dirty examples can bring serious money because collectors love dramatic errors, not just shiny ones. Another valuable error is the off-center strike. These coins are minted when the blank planchet is not perfectly centered in the press. A slight off-center error might be worth only $5,000, but when the design is struck 20%, 40%, or even 60% off-center, the value skyrockets into the hundreds and thousands. And here's the amazing part: the older and dirtier they look, the more likely the owner is to assume they're worthless. But off-center Connecticut quarters with dramatic misalignment are extremely collectible and can sell for $1,500 and higher. The most extreme examples, especially those with partial missing designs and nearly blank fields, have been known to approach $10,000. But now comes the truly shocking category: double strike and multiple strike errors. These are coins struck twice or even multiple times inside the press, causing overlapping designs that look wild and chaotic. Some show 2 charter oak trees. Others have a distorted Washington portrait overlapping itself. These double-struck Connecticut quarters are extremely rare and sometimes sell for $3,000 to $7,000 depending on how dramatic the error is.
These ultra-rare mint-era 1967 quarters are still showing up in pocket change, in old jars, and in random garage sales. People are finding them when they least expect it, and cashing in big that you're going through an old, dusty box in your attic. Maybe coins your grandfather left behind. Maybe a jar that's been sitting untouched for years. You pour the coins out onto the table, and among all the ordinary, dull change, one coin catches your eye. The history, to understand why some 1967 quarters are insanely valuable, you need to know what was happening in the United States during that time. In the mid-1960s, America faced a massive coin shortage. People were hoarding silver coins, businesses were struggling, and the mint couldn't keep up with demand. From 1965 to 1967, the U.S. Mint made a radical decision. 1967 silver quarter struck an error. A verified 1967 silver quarter error could easily sell for six figures, and experts say that a high-grade, nearly perfect example could break $500,000, or possibly even reach $1 million if the right collectors get involved. Double die obverse and reverse errors. High-grade double dies can sell for $20,000 to $30,000 plus. Off-center strike errors. A 50% off-center, full-date 1967 quarter can easily hit $5,000, $10,000. Double struck and multi-struck errors. Major double strike specimens have sold for $15,000 to $25,000. Wrong planchet errors. Rare foreign planchet strikes can exceed $40,000 plus die cap error. 1967 die caps are exceptionally rare and can command $20,000, $35,000 plus. How to check your old 1967 quarter. Start with the weight. Use a digital jewelry scale. 0.6.25 G equals silver, huge money. 5.67 G equals clad, normal. Check the edge. Silver equals no copper layer, clad equals copper core, visible. Examine lettering for doubling. Use a magnifier or macrophone camera. Check thickness. Coin struck on the wrong planchet will be too thin or too thick. Look for strange shapes. Die caps, double strikes, and broad strikes are visually dramatic. Compare the sound. Tap the coin lightly on another quarter. Silver rings. Clad does not. Famous 1967 quarter discoveries that shocked us. The garage sale. Discovery: a collector accidentally bought a 1967 quarter in a jar of cheap coins at a garage sale. Later found out it was a silver planchet error. Value? Over $15,000. The double strike find at a coin show. A 1967 multi-struck quarter. One of the most dramatic errors ever seen. Sold for well over $20,000. The 1967 dime planchet quarter looked like a damaged coin. Turns out it was struck on a leftover dime blank. It sold for nearly $10,000. The 1967 quarter found in circulation in the 2020 size. People still find these. A man found a 1967 off-center strike worth over $2,500 in his change tray. Because this year 1955 is home to one of the most famous, shocking, valuable, and legendary error coins in U.S. history. Imagine holding a penny so old, so worn, and so dirty that most people wouldn't give it a second glance. A coin that's been in pockets, drawers, fields, garages, and who knows where else for almost 70 years. Yes, this is the year that produced an error penny so powerful it shook the entire coin community. This is the story of the legendary 1955 wheat penny errors. The history of the 1955 wheat penny. Coin demand was at an all-time high. Businesses were booming. America's population was exploding. Machines ran long hours. Employees fought to meet enormous production quotas. And with so much pressure on the mint, mistakes were bound to happen. Each coin die has to be impressed multiple times by the master hub. In 1955, a hub and a working die were misaligned during the hubbing process. The die received two impressions, each at slightly different angles, creating extremely dramatic doubling on the obverse. The most valuable 1955 error pennies. The 1955 double die obverse. Examples over $1,000,000. Even dirty, damaged, circulated examples bring thousands. 1955 poor man's. This is not a real double die, but a die deterioration doubling that looks interesting and collectible. Top grade. $200 to $300. 1955 off-center strike. 70-90% off with full date showing. $5,000, $10,000 plus. Clean off-centers with visible dates are extremely collectible. 1955 struck on silver dime planchet. Extraordinary examples. $150, 000 plus. These are massive auction pieces. 1955 struck on wrong foreign planchet. $2, 000, $40,000, depending on the metal and rarity. Double strikes, dramatic double strike. $1,000 to $8, 000. These coins look wild and bring strong auction competition. 1955 cuds and major die breaks. Large cuds. $500 to $2, 500, struck through grease. These coins have missing letters or weak details caused by grease buildup. Major missing design. $300 to $600, off metal/color varieties. These usually bring $20 to $150 depending on severity. How to check your 1955 penny for a rare error. Examine the date. For the true double die, the doubling is massive. Look closely at Liberty and I in God We Trust. Thick, bold doubling equals jackpot. Check the weight. Normal, 3.11 Girong planchet. 2.5G or 3.5G or lower/higher. Observe the color. Silver equals potential dime planchet. Rotate the coin. Look for double striking rotation errors.
Most rare and valuable old dirty 2001p New York State $quarter, a coin covered with years of fingerprints, grime, scratches, and pocket wear, and suddenly discovering that this forgotten piece of change. Imagine the shock of realizing that a simple New York quarter, one that looks like every other coin in circulation, is actually one of the most valuable and rare error coins of the entire state quarter program. That is why today's video is so important, and why you must watch until the very end. Because some of the rarest and highest value mint errors ever discovered. When the Mint released the New York quarter on January 2, 2001, collectors loved its detailed design immediately. The Statue of Liberty standing proudly beside the state outline, accompanied by the banner Gateway to Freedom. But while millions admired its appearance, few realized that 2001 was also a year filled with intense production pressure, worn machinery, and overloaded minting equipment. That combination produced an incredible variety of dramatic mint errors, and today those mistakes have become some of the most sought-after treasures in modern coin collecting. What makes the 2001p New York quarter so stunning is that many of these errors were never discovered in mint sets or collector. One of the most valuable errors for the 2001p New York quarter is the off-center strike. This error occurs when the planchet is not perfectly centered between the dies during striking. A light 5% to 10% off-center strike might bring $40 to $80. But when the error becomes dramatic 30%, 40%, 50% off-center, the value climbs fast. A bold, eye-catching off-center New York quarter with a visible date can sell for $500 to $800, or $1,500 depending on severity. But the holy grail of off-center errors is a perfectly dramatic strike where more than half the design is missing. These extreme off-center New York quarters have sold for as much as $3,000, and the most unusual examples can exceed $5,000. Another powerful error is the broad strike, where the coin is struck without the retaining collar. This causes the quarter to expand outward like a flattened disc. Broad strike errors range from $2,000 to $3,000 depending on the spread. But a broad strike combined with an off-center strike becomes a premium rarity. These dramatic combination errors can easily sell for $600 to $1,200. Some unusually wide broad strikes where the rims nearly vanish can reach $1,500. But nothing attracts collectors more than a double strike. If the coin is struck twice, especially with the second strike off-center, the value skyrockets. A mild double strike New York quarter might bring $200 to $400. But a major second strike, clearly separated and showing a second outline of the Statue of Liberty, can reach $2,000 to $4,000, even $7,000. Double-struck coins outside the collar where the second strike lands in a different position can bring over $10,000.
Let's dive into the thrilling world of the 1970 rare quarter that you're sorting through a handful of old, grimy change. Maybe it came from an old piggy bank, a forgotten jar in the garage, or a dusty box passed down through family. As the coins clink together, one quarter stands out, not because it's shiny, but because it's not. It's old, it's dirty, it looks practically worthless. You wipe the grime just enough to see the date, the history. The year 1970 was a turning point in U.S. coin production. The mint was transitioning, experimenting, and working through complicated changes in materials and production processes. And when things change at the mint, mistakes happen. Big ones. By 1970, The U.S. Mint was still dealing with the aftershocks of the coin shortages from 1964 to 1967, when people hoarded silver coins. Because of this, the Mint pushed production hard during the late 1960s and early 1970s, yet the most valuable 1970 quarter errors ever found 1970 quarter struck. Collectors go wild over one-off errors like this that a similar discovery today could easily surpass $200,000, and in a record-setting auction, it could break $500,000, maybe even $1,000,1970. Double die obverse errors. A strong double die can bring $20,000 to $30,000 plus, and high-grade examples are brutally rare. 1970 off-center strike errors. A 50% off-center 1970 quarter with a full date can easily reach $3,000 to $5,000.1970. Wrong planchet errors. Foreign planchet strikes are even rarer, often reaching $15,000, $40,000 plus. 1970 double-struck and multi-struck errors. Major multi-strike examples often surpass $10,000, $20,000. Broad strike errors. Value: $100 to $1. 500 plus. While not as spectacular, rare 1970 broad strikes still sell for four-figure amounts when well preserved. How to check your old 1970 quarter. Weigh the coin. Use a small jewelry scale. Standard clad weight: 5.67 grams. Silver planchet weight: 6.25 grams. Smaller/lighter, possibly struck on a dime planchet. Check the rim. Silver equals solid silver. Color clad equals visible copper band. Dime planchet equals thin, reduced rim. Broad strike equals stretched rim. Check for foreign coin details. If you see any faint outlines underneath the quarter design, you may have a foreign coin overstrike worth tens or hundreds of thousands. Famous 1970 quarter discoveries that shocked the coin. WRLD, the Canadian overstrike discovery. It sold for over $30,000 immediately, then resold for even higher, well over $100,000 at auction. IT proved that the Mint was sloppy during 1970, and major errors slipped through. The 1970 dime planchet error. A circulated 1970 quarter struck on a dime blank. Thin, dull, and dirty. Sold for nearly $10,000. Surprising even experts. Home jar discovery. A coin collector found a 1970 multi-strike quarter in a family coin jar. Auction price: $7,500. The 1970 double die found in a coin roll. A strong double die example found inside a simple quarter roll fetched over $15,000. Today, we're diving deep into the 1979 D-era quarter, a coin that many people overlook. But the smart collectors know the truth. Yes, one ordinary-looking quarter, the kind you'd ignore at the bottom of a drawer, could be hiding an error so rare that collectors fight over it like treasure hunters discovering gold. So stay with me until the end, because the last section of this video reveals an error type so rare, so explosive, that if you found it on a 1979 D quarter, it could be worth more than a house. The story behind the Denver Mint, marked with the D, produced more than 300 million quarters, but what collectors love isn't the massive production. It's the mistakes that slipped through unnoticed, and this is why the 1979 D quarter has become famous among error hunters. Because while the regular coin is worth only 25 cents, the error versions can explode in value. The most valuable 1979 D errors: off-center strikes. A 70% off-center strike with full date could easily reach $2,000 plus today. Double strikes. Extreme examples have touched $5,000 or more depending on severity. Die caps. $3,000 to $25,000 plus. If a 1979 D quarter exists as a die cap, it would be a holy grail find, easily worth tens of thousands. Double die obverse or reverse. $150 to $5,000 plus. While not as common for 1979 D as other years, double dies do happen, struck through foreign material. $100 to $2,000 plus. T means something got in the way during rotated die errors. Potential value: $200 to $1. 500 plus. If you flip the coin and the back doesn't line up perfectly with the front, this is a rotated die. The holy grail error to look for: a 1979 D-quarter struck on a silver planchet. ORA 1979. D-quarter struck on a foreign gold-colored planchet. These errors are almost mythical. But wrong planchet errors do exist for modern coins. One single mistake can slip through that if you found one. Moneybag easily $50,000, $250,000 at auction. Moneybag may be more if it's dramatic and well-preserved. You pull out a dirty, faded 1982 P-quarter. The thing looks worthless, scratched, stained, worn to the bone. But what if I told you that this ugly little coin, this coin that looks like it's been in 10,000 pockets, this coin that most people would spend without a second thought? 1982 wasn't just another year in the world of U.S. coinage. It was one of the biggest transitional years in modern history. And this is how some 1982 P-quarters became hidden treasures. The most valuable 1982 P-era quarters ever found. Quarter struck on the wrong planchet. Extreme examples have crossed $30,000 to $60,000 plus in other years, meaning a dramatic 1982 P could realistically achieve the same point. 1982 P off-center errors, $200 to $4, 500 plus. Off-center strikes from 1982 are surprisingly visually dramatic. Double-struck / multi-struck 1982 P quarters, multi-struck coins, struck 3+ times, can reach $5,000 to $8,000. Broad strike, $100 to $1,000. A broad-struck coin loses its ridged edge and expands outward. Clipped planchets, $100 to $2,000. The Blakesley effect, a weakening of the rim opposite the clip, increases value dramatically. Die caps, $2,000 to $25,000 plus. These occur when a struck coin sticks to the die and keeps striking more coins. Struck through errors, a fully struck through 1982 P could bring $1,000 to $4,000. Rotated die errors, $200 to $1,500. 1982 P double die obverse, DDO, and double die reverse, DDR, $200 to $7, 500 plus. Double dies from the early 80s are highly respected. Some 1983 P quarter errors are so shocking, so unexpected, so unbelievably rare, that collectors compete for them like treasure hunters chasing legendary gold. Many of the most valuable 1983 P error quarters ever found were discovered in horrible condition, dirty, worn, or heavily circulated. Philadelphia was the busiest location. Millions of planchets were rushed. Dies were pushed far beyond their safe lifespan. Quality control struggled to keep up. And because the mint didn't make mint sets in 1983, many coins went straight into circulation, meaning the most valuable 1983 P error quarters. In other years, wrong planchet quarters have sold for more than $40,000, $60,000. Off-center strikes $300 to $4,000 plus. Double struck / multi-struck errors for $100 to $8,000 plus. A multi-struck 1983 P quarter struck 3+ times would be a monster-level error worth thousands. Broad struck 1983 P quarters, $150 to $1,000. The coin looks wider, flatter, and has a smooth edge. Clipped planchets, $100 to $2,500. A double or triple clip from 1983 would be highly desirable. Die cap errors, $3,000 to $25,000 plus. A die cap occurs when a coin sticks to the die and continues striking more blanks, forming struck through errors, $150 to $3,500. These happen when foreign material gets between the die and the planchet. Rotated die errors, $200 to $1,500. If the reverse doesn't line up properly when the coin is flipped, this is a rotated die. Double dies, $200 to $7,500 plus. A dramatic double die could command thousands. Why 1983 P errors can sell for huge money. NO mint sets were made in 1983. This makes high-quality coins rarer. It also means errors slipped into circulation unnoticed. Heavy mint production, high speed equals more mistakes. Point 3. Weak equipment and die wearers from 1983 are often more dramatic. High demand from collectors. The 1982 to 1983 error period is one of the hottest in modern numismatics.